In this final video, I'm going to give you your feedback on the week 14 source discussion questions about Reconstruction. These were based on the source James W. Lee's letter to the governor of Mississippi, referring to the 1875 elections in that state. The first question asked you, what methods did the Democrats use to intimidate voters? Simple answer, violence. You described very well the kind of examples of violence that Lee states, the use of infantry and artillery, needle guns, which I had to look up, is a new kind of rifle that was developed at that time, swords and cannons all being deployed to intimidate black voters, both generally and also specifically when Republicans try to carry out rallies. This pro-Democrat violent intimidation would occur. The guns and the military mobilization would come out to break up rallies and generally intimidate people away from voting for the Republicans. The second question asks, what does the source reveal about which groups supported Democrats or Republicans? There's a fairly straightforward racial divide here. The Democrats are very explicitly white and wanting to reestablish white supremacy. Lee refers to them as white liners at one point. The racism is very explicit in the Democrats' language. And the main target is black Republicans. So we see that the whites tended to back the Democrats, the blacks tended to back the Republicans. The suppression of the Republican vote was one and the same thing as the suppression of African-American liberty in these situations. There's a few exceptions. There's reference to black Democrats being used to provoke riots. We can assume these are a fairly small number. He doesn't explain exactly what provoke riots means. My guess is either have black Democrats infiltrate into Republican groups of black voters to start trouble, or maybe simply provoke the Republicans by having black Democrats there at all, maybe just provoked the anger of the Republicans. Either way, I think we can assume these are a fairly small minority. Lee also mentions boys under 21 being involved in these riots and military mobilization. So even those too old to be of voting age are mobilized to help to intimidate the black voters. The final question I asked you was, why do you think why do you think Republican voters went unprotected by the authorities? Many of you answered quite correctly. Well, the authorities are the people doing the intimidation here. The local state level or city level authorities are the Democrats. They're mobilizing themselves to protect their vote and to suppress the vote of the African Americans and of Republican voters. Some more specific answers. We see that they intimidate federal officials. There's a reference to a US supervisor of elections being intimidated away from even attending and observing the elections. So the man sent by the federal government to try and ensure a free election is too terrified to do his job. The timing is significant. Some of you mentioned that this is late in the Reconstruction era when the attention of Northerners is beginning to focus on economic issues or issues of political corruption rather than on the South. And it's particularly significant, this is 1875 to 76. In 1870, the military had been removed from the 4th military district of which Mississippi was a part. So there were no federal troops there to protect Republican voters. They're entirely at the mercy of local state level authorities, which are mobilizing precisely to intimidate them and to ensure a democratic victory in the election.